In 1998, Marvel introduced the most unusual team of Avengers Next, the next generation of Avengers, A Next, featuring a very, very different team of familiar and unfamiliar faces. A Next was designed to be part of M2, Marvel 2. Marvel Universe was needed more universe, so we got Marvel Universe 2, and Avengers Next is where it goes. Let's get into this. Hey everybody, this is Perch. A lot of people do not know this exists. So once upon a time, and maybe it's a whole other story, there was something called the MC2 universe. This is an imprint of the Marvel Comics universe. It was designed to be an alternative future timeline. It probably the biggest kind of thing to come out of that was Spider-Girl, Spider-Man's daughter. And it ran for a fairly short amount of time, all things considered. I think started in the late 90s. It introduced things like Juggernaut's son. We'll get to that in a second. And it's one of those moments in time that really didn't go too far and is kind of rarely seen today. They've done a couple. I think the last limited series has kind of been around 2009. They finally shuttered The Amazing Spider-Girl. But they eventually got rid of kind of the MC2 idea, but the characters have popped up from here and there. There's even one, I think, a character in the Spider-Geddon or Spider-Verse and the Secret Wars event. But a lot of people from the 90s kind of remember this fondly. They're not sure why, but they do. Anyway, so this comic is a bold new team of Avengers, and it definitely feels that way. It's got a lot of the feel, including just the page layout and everything else. And Tom DeFalco, Ron Frenz, we're definitely trying to make something that would be reminiscent, nostalgic for the 1963 Avengers. So some people are getting attacked. There's a bunch of kind of looks like trolls, Asgardian trolls, and they are messing things up pretty good. There's a group of unfamiliar, although we can kind of recognize Speedball. I think that looks like Jolt and Jubilee back there. Something that looks like Iron Man and Juggernaut. Anyway, they're in the middle of a heated battle. How could this have possibly happened? We're about to learn it. How did we get here? And so a flashback begins. So Kevin Masterson is basically meeting Edwin Jarvis, Chief of Staff at the Maria Stark Foundation. They're doing a little tour. Kevin has been summoned, again, son of Thunderstrike, kind of a character, again, many recognized from the 90s, was a kind of a popular Thor, but not popular enough to like stick around and keep their series, but was, again, very much part of the 90s. And so Kevin is kind of let in, and Edwin hands him his legacy, his birthright, the enchanted mace, the Thunderstrike Mace. And he hands it to Kevin and says, "Oh no, am I supposed to be a hero?" And Jarvis says, No, this weapon actually the magic was tied to, your father, and it doesn't work now. Now it's just a big thing you could club people with, but it's not actually going to be it's not going to be lightning or anything. So, Kevin Masterson starts to walk away with his mace in hand when he's attacked by these trolls, basically out in the yard. So they are detoured by the Avengers security systems, and the call goes out. We need help. Jarvis says basically sends out the alert, and who answers the call first? But Jubilee, who lives in New Jersey. Doesn't seem. She's the leader of the X people. It's funny in 1998 that they had the whole, they made the transition from X-Men to X-People. But here in 2020, we're talking a lot about that, but we still have X-Men. Just something to point out there that, the X-People. But we also get Jolt, who was showing up in the Thunderbolts at the time. Both are older, and they're heroes. And we also get a distress signal picked up by Cassie Lang. Now, Cassie Lang, this is pre-Young Avengers time, so we hadn't really seen it. She was just the daughter of Scott Lang, and they're doing science-y stuff together. She has now taken on the mantle of the hero, and she gets a distress call. So quickly, the three converge, along with some others who see these trolls go running by. Robbie Baldwin, Speedball, and in a kind of a weirder, one of the characters was really intended to be a big deal. The Almighty Jizz, or J2, sorry, looks like Jay-Z. I'm just saying, this is awkward how they name this. It does not look like J2. Plus, it seems weird calling a hero J2. It's Jay-Z or Jizz. Anyway, his power is to have a Juggernaut-like costume and a flannel shirt tied around his waist because, of course, this is the 90s, and people are still fond of Pearl Jam and Nirvana. So basically, the trolls catch up with old Kevin, and they're wanting to take his mace, but suddenly in comes Mainframe, who punches right to the jaw, and Mainframe looks like Iron Man, the same kind of Iron Man suit. Everything else, the team has assembled, and immediately we're going to battle. So there's punch, punch, punch everywhere. And as the battle, they're starting to turn the tides, defeat these trolls. Suddenly, a pair of green eyes shocks them all. A brilliant blast of light erupts, and the heroes find themselves in chains. And who has done it? Well, it's Loki, the often maligned and rarely understood god of rapture and delight, who's taken the mace. But he's a liar. And this is a nice throwback, by the way, to Avengers #1, which had Loki, or Heroes Reborn Loki as the villain. But Loki is full on evil here. He's gonna suck some energy out of this mace, and he's gonna use it against his many enemies. Set Asgard aflame, tear the heavens asunder. And Kevin Masterson kind of runs, grabs the mace in the midst of all these energies, willing to sacrifice himself so that his father's legacy will not be used for evil. But there is suddenly a sound of thunder, and he is transformed into, he suddenly grows a ponytail, and he's got an outfit with some things to show off his abs, and he starts just shooting Storm, the powers of Thunderstrike, out of his hands. The mace is gone. It's like been inserted into him somehow. And they just start fighting. So we learn a little bit more about the characters during this period, kind of how Jubilee has evolved. She gets her glasses broken. Speedball, how he's grown up and become a pretty strong hero. Mainframe is still this kind of mysterious Iron Man-like character. It would later be revealed that the Mainframe was kind of the Vision with some Tony Stark programming inside of him. And just as the heroes are getting completely overwhelmed, they send up a signal flare. And this calls the Mighty Thor, who is the Lord of Asgard at this point. This is, gives you some good nostalgia if you look at this. He's got his kind of gold uniform on, kind of sheepskin loincloth, and he's got his helmet with his beard and the mask. I'm not sure. Well, I'm not sure at this point why he's got his kind of his mask on. I mean, everybody knows it's Thor, and I don't think he really has a secret identity that is needed to be hidden here. This isn't like the storyline where he had brittle bones and he needed that protection. Anyway, that doesn't matter. The costume's cool. So Thor helps turn the tide, basically gets Loki to retreat and flee before his brother can kick his butt. And Thor welcomes the new heroes, sends them back to Earth, and we see that Jubilee and who's thinking she really needs to have a private conversation with Jizz in the not too distant future. Well, Speedball and Jolt take off, leaving a core group of Cassie Lang, the new Thunderstrike, Kevin Masterson, Mainframe, Jizz, and they are the Avengers. As Edwin Jarvis looks on proudly, we have a brand new team, Avengers Assemble, who has answered the call and become the new team. And very soon, there will be some new members. American Dream, which is a kind of female Captain America, one of many. Looks a lot like that, if you remember, if you're watching Glow on Netflix, very much like like the main character, one of the main characters there. Freebooter, who is kind of a mashup of Hawkeye and the Swordsman. Crimson Curse, which was a Scarlet Witch type character. Blue Streak, who's a Quicksilver. And then in a weird way, they go to Wakanda to fight the white supremacy Soldiers of the Serpent team and rescue the Coal Tiger, which I always thought was a very bizarre. This is a son of the Black Panther called the Coal Tiger, which that was somebody's decision. I don't know what to say. But anyway, they do some other things. They get the daughter of Monica Rambeau, Blacklight. Again, really? But okay. And there's a bunch of, they have a lot of the kind of the classic characters, their legacy. They're either their children or somebody who's taken on their mantle. Tony Stark and Clint Barton are still running around. There is the children of Hank and Janet Pym, who are called Red Queen and Big Man. I always like that name. You're like you've got your dad's kind of growing powers, and so you're like, I need a name. I need a name. I need something more creative than J2 or Jizz. So I'm going to call myself Big Man. And anyway, I always kind of wondered. I mean, you know, now they're going for something here. It's all good. It's all good. These were fun comics, fun times. It definitely had a classic feel. There are parts of this that really do remind you of the 60s, and which they were intending to do in the Avengers and how it was all put together. There are other parts of this that you know, kind of are groaningly bad that remind you of the late 90s and kind of where the comic industry was at the time. This series didn't last very long. It went 12 issues, and then somebody figured out that calling it A Next might not be enough, so they went with Avengers Next. It lasted another 5 issues and then kind of petered out. It definitely that was later though. That would be when they came back, kind of around 2007. You know, it's a concept that I fully expect at some point, like Jason Aaron's going to have his new team Avengers like hurtle through the multiverse, and they're going to land on this planet and have to save Jizz's flannel shirt that he wears. That's I just suspect. Anyway, what do you think of this comic? Do you remember this comic? Be honest now. Do you remember the MC2 or this whole Avengers Next universe? Do you have fond memories? Was this when you were a kid? Was this a good entry into comics? It was intended to bring a younger audience in, get them excited about Marvel without all that continuity. Not sure it actually did that, but it was a fun attempt, all things considered. So let me know in the comments below what you thought. Like, subscribe, introduce to a friend, bring other people into this. Would love to hear their thoughts, their opinions, as well as yours. Follow me on Twitter or Facebook at Comic Perch, and thanks for listening.